Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's Q&A. Sorry it's a day early again, but I really wanted to take tomorrow and make that completely cleared so that I could prepare for my panel at a video game con in New Jersey. I think my time slot got slightly moved and the room I'm in got slightly moved, but I really don't care at all. I still get to do the panel. I still get to go hang out and see all of you there, so they can move me to the parking lot for all I care, and I'm happy. But I do want to make sure that I've rehearsed the presentation again. I feel like I'm getting a little bit better every time I do it, but I also feel like this one's kind of important. So hopefully everybody who's there, certainly feel free to give me feedback right there in the Q&As when afterwards when the presentation's finished, because this one's going to eventually turn into a video, and I want to make sure I really get this one right, because I think it might change people's minds about how to approach retro gaming. But enough using the Q&As to pitch my silly panel. Let's jump right into these. First is a few questions from Brian Darling. He saw my video on the Otaku 6-port RGB and component video switch and wants to know if I had any follow-up info. He's looking at that or the Shiny Bow switch. So to answer that, I really liked the Otaku. It's a basic manual switch. It didn't add any features, but more importantly than anything else, it didn't seem to take anything away. There didn't seem to be a noticeable signal drop. It didn't mess with anything. The only thing I wasn't able to try was a lot of stuff with composite video sync to see if maybe that kind of jailbar interference would spill over. But overall, I mean, it just, for the price, it seemed like a really great starter switch. And not only that, it's something that many people would benefit from, having a second spare switch. You know, unless you're one of the rare people that builds your setup and never touches it, there's always a chance you'll need a secondary setup or need to test something on a bench or whatever else. So I really liked that one. I also owned the 6x2 Shiny Bow and loved that one, but now we start talking about price, and it's my strong opinion that, you know, if you just want a cheap entry-level switch, the Otaku seemed awesome, as long as it's still being built in the same quality. But if you want to spend more than that, I really would save up for the G-SCART switch because of all of the features that it adds. Not only just the auto switching, but the sync regeneration, the signal protection, and all that stuff. It's really just, you get what you pay for. So if you're on a budget now, my suggestion would be definitely grab the Otaku switch and then eventually upgrade to a G-SCART. If you just want to buy one and never touch it again, just buy the G-SCART now and don't mess with anything else. It really is, you know, if you use those extra features and you like the auto switching, it absolutely is worth it. And your second question is, do I know anybody on the West Coast that can perform recaps for Genesis and Nintendo consoles? I know a lot of people that can, but I'm not sure if any of them do it as a service, or maybe would only do it as, you know, as a friend to a fellow Patreon subscriber or something. So if anybody would be willing to do that, please let Brian know. Just, you know, post right in this week's comments or something like that. But, you know, repair shops, they're always so hard to track, because unless they have a team of people working on it, it's usually just depends on one person's schedule and workload. So it's always very hard recommending that, but maybe somebody could help you out. Next, Unmaker wanted to follow up regarding the triple bypass testing and the issues they were having with audio on a Genesis 2, and it just looked like a bomb issue. And I'm assuming this is because there was one board that you may have bought pre-assembled and had to convert it over to a different, so maybe you bought the Genesis 1 version and had to convert it to a Genesis 2. That's actually the main reason why we did the version 2 of the triple bypass, is just to make sure that nobody has that issue anymore. If you buy it, all you do is jump a couple of jumpers, which, you know, if you're installing this thing, you should be able to jump two pads together. So, you know, we just want to make it easier for people like that. But assuming that's the case, or maybe you just bought one yourself and just made a simple mistake. I do that all the time, so no disrespect. But it's really good to hear that, and thank you for following back up, because, you know, there was a ton of effort by a lot of people that's been put into testing those things to make sure that they're good. And in all of our testing, the worst results we found with the version 1 triple bypass, results we found was, I think that could have been a little better. So, you know, we were very proud of that, obviously, and I'm glad that it turned out to just be a simple issue. But thank you for reporting it. You know, that's always very important. And you called out Tien Fang and FBX for helping out. Absolutely. They're two people that are deeply involved in the triple bypass project. Tianfeng's the one that really has been driving it forward and getting it to the point where it's at now, at least the version 2 part. So yeah, awesome people on this team. I'm so lucky to have my name attached to something like this. So yeah, thanks again for the follow-up. It's a Serial Wow had a good question, and this is like the fourth time I've had to record the answer because I keep flip-flopping the terms that I mean to talk about. So let me try this again and see if I can get this right. It's a Serial Wow asked if I could explain a little more about the potential pitfalls of having too many low-pass filters and or sync strippers in a chain. The worry is signal degradation and image shifting when daisy chaining devices, and an example would be a 4x1 G-comp switch going into an 8x2 G-comp or G-SCART switch going into like the OSSC, RetroTink, or FrameMeister, all while using HD Retrovision cables. Don't all of these devices have their own built-in low-pass filters and sync strippers? So I guess I'll approach low pass filter first, and I'll try not to say sync stripper when I mean low pass filter and vice versa. But the low pass filter is something that's required on all digital displays when going from analog to digital. And every time you add another one to the chain, it's got the potential to soften the image. I guess if you really wanted to get picky about it, you could say that even the first low pass filter in a chain might soften the image a hair. But, I mean, there's no question that you need one. And if you don't believe me, just try plugging a console directly into the OSSC onto a 4K TV and then toggle that filter off and on. You'll get exactly what I mean by that. The only issue is if you have too many, it gets to be noticeably softer. So from a safety point of view, as long as all the circuits are built right, you could have 20 low-pass filters in a row, and it's not going to hurt your equipment. You're just going to have a really soft image. And the best example I can give for something like that is if you have a console with like some of the old THS 7314 based mods, going into HD Retrovision cables, which are then going into the OSSC. That's 3 low-pass filters. And if you have something like a 70-inch 4K TV going through the OSSC, you might actually notice the difference from that. People have teased me over the years about obsessing over 1% of difference that nobody will notice. But now that scalers are getting better, you could tweak the OSSC now to have an incredible scale of your original image. And there's eventually going to be 4K integer scales for that too. So that's when you would actually start to notice a small difference. So, 2 low-pass filters in a chain is not a big deal. So my suggestion would just be, if you know for a fact that any of your consoles have a low-pass filter, just turn the filter on the OSSC off. Won't really matter so much on the RetroTink or FrameMeister. And of course, if you have any mods that allow you to turn the filter off, such as the triple bypass, or I believe all of Voltar's boards actually, just pop it open and turn it off. I think it's just a jump. I think he specifies on his website. I can't remember if you need it jumped for off or jumped for on, but just, if that's the case, you're using HD Retrovisions going into something else, I would just turn it off right there on the chip. So the other thing that I found as well is that the low-pass filter on a chip that I've seen don't perform as well as the one built into the OSSC. So it's even more of a reason to not have it on the original console. But once again, there's no safety concern, and it's not a giant deal. It's just, it's good practice to only have one if possible. And next, sync strippers. They don't have anything to do with low-pass filters, at least in this context of what we're talking about. There's sync filtering on the OSSC, but that's a little different. So the reason those were so widely talked about, especially when I first started the website, is because a lot of the things that we have today don't exist. So there was a lot of switches out there that required C-Sync, not composite video or Luma as sync. There was a whole bunch of devices out there, and the easy fix for everything was just throw a sync stripper in it. But now that there's a lot more knowledge out there, and now that there's better understanding and better devices out there, you don't really need one. So I guess a great example was there was an N64 mod I was working on, way back when, that had a sync stripper built in because I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on with N64's sync. So I just took it right from Luma, put it into a sync stripper, had the board there, the circuit was built correctly, so it outputted the proper voltage and everything. And to me, that was a perfect solution. And while it's not a bad solution, the better way to do it would be to use the originally generated sync, and like Voltar does on his boards. So it's really just a matter of, if you had a bunch of sync strippers in a row that all had a proper circuit, you would get image shift because it would technically shift over by 1 pixel for each time it passed through, but it really wouldn't affect anything and it wouldn't be unsafe to use. The issue that I have is, how do you really know that any of those random sync strippers, see, I almost did it again, any of those random sync strippers were built correctly? And that's my worry. So, like, let's say you have an older mod for an N64 that somebody, a random seller built a board, built a sync stripper in it, and didn't do it right. And now you're having too much voltage come out. And then you put that into a switch that has its own low pass filter. Or I just did it again. All right, I'm keeping this one. I'm not redoing it. Sorry. You put it into a switch that has its own basic sync stripper built in, like the original G-SCARTs, not like the newer ones that have the really great sync regeneration. And then you go into a device like those SCART to FrameMeister adapters that had a sync stripper built in. And let's just assume that 2 out of the 3 aren't built properly. You could be sending way too much voltage into your FrameMeister and it will kill it. Maybe immediately, maybe it'll take a little while, whatever. So that's the real reason why a lot of us say don't use sync strippers anymore unless you absolutely have to, because there's just no reason for it. The only thing I could possibly see is individual situations. So if you're using an Extron Crosspoint, for example, as your switch, at the moment, I think the only console you'd have to worry about is PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1. And in that case, you could use a sync stripper, or you could just do a C-Sync mod to the console, depending on your needs. So it's one of those things where every scenario in which you might use a sync stripper, you could probably have a different or potentially better solution. So it's really just best practice and promoting good safety. But there's actually nothing wrong with having a bunch of properly built low pass filter and sync strippers in a chain. It's not going to hurt anything. It's just, there's better ways to go about it. So I'm sorry for the long explanation. It's a very good question. And, without the guys from the Retro Roundtable here, I wanted to make sure I got it right in the best way that I could. Everybody on the roundtable could explain this in technical terms and have more facts to back up everything I just said. So I wanted to make sure I got the real world examples in there, and maybe it's something we could talk about on the roundtable as well. So here's an interesting question from Julio Cavesa, and I hope I'm understanding this correctly, but I think he has a RetroTink 2X and an M cable, which he really enjoys, and he was hoping to use them with his original Xbox and Wii, and already bought high-quality component cables. I think the workaround for this, provided that you're playing 480p games, is that you just need to find a cheap component to HDMI converter. The one I have is the brand Porta, but I'm not even going to bother posting a link because very often the same company will just switch the guts halfway through a lifetime when it comes to cheap devices like this. But, you could buy stuff from Amazon and try it out and see how it works. But, we're talking a $20 device, and that would go from component to HDMI. Then you plug the M cable into that, and you should be good to go. The other thing you mentioned is using the OSSC to pass through it, and that certainly would add a lot of options. But at the end of the day, it's cost. Do you really need the OSSC, or could you just pick up a cheap $20 converter and go from there? It's one of those things where it's really up to you. It's your decision. I think if it were me, I'd probably start with the cheapest solution first just to see what happens and then go from there. But yeah, I'm pretty sure all of that would work. And I did double check the specs, and the M cable does work in 480p, or the M cable gaming edition. I'm just not exactly sure what it does, but the bottom line with anything like that is if you enjoy the results that it gives, then by all means, use it and enjoy it. And I'm pretty sure the converters that I talked about would work for you in that scenario. Just once again, though, if the Wii or Xbox goes to 480i mode, then it's not going to work through the M cable. It will More specifically, it might work going through the M cable, but it's just going to pass through. It's not going to process the info. So give that a try. Let me know what you think, and hopefully that's the solution for you. Bo Lee recently got a PAL GameCube all set up to run Homebrew and the Game Boy interface loader. It's running via SCART into both an OSSC and a JVC RGB monitor, but on both it only takes up about half the screen. So correct, it's because the resolution of Game Boy is less than that of your average 240p, 320 by 240 screen. So it's going to be centered inside of that. Zooming in makes the picture look really blurry. Would I happen to know of any setting I can use that will upscale the picture without making it blurry? So through your OSSC, I think Firebrand X have some specific settings for that. I could be wrong. Through the FrameMeister, he definitely did. So you're able to zoom farther than you would on, just using it through the GameCube or the original Super Game Boy on a Super Nintendo. On your JVC RGB monitor, not really. You could get dedicated hardware for that, but it's essentially just scaling and stuff. And I don't know how well it would work, and I don't know how well any hardware would ever work in a scenario like that for an RGB monitor, unless it was specifically designed to be used with Game Boy. So for now, I would look into the two scaling options, but for your RGB monitor, I would just use the zooming built into the Game Boy interface software. And to be honest, I was very impressed with how the zoom looks. I mean, it's not going to be as sharp as just 1-to-1, but I thought it did a great job overall. So, the one thing I really always wanted to experiment with but didn't have the combination of things I needed is what happens when you throw weird resolutions at CRTs that are at professional CRTs. So what happens if you just send a native Game Boy resolution to like a Sony PVM or BVM? Or what would happen if I tried to do widescreen 240p? So instead of 320 by 240, 360 by 240. Is that something that would work on a widescreen BVM or something like that? So it's, I'd like to really dig into that one day, but it would take a combination of finding the time and tools to do it, as well as having all of my friends that are smarter than me that are able to help me with the test software, all be available at the same day for it. So it's something I'd like to look into, and maybe we could eventually apply it to something like Game Boy on certain monitors. But for now, I would just stick to using the standard options, messing with your scalers, or just viewing it in the middle of an RGB monitor. To be honest, one of the, not to ramble too much, but one of the things I always wanted to do was I've seen many large and really good quality CRTs that the edges of it, so all around the screen, are so blurry that you feel like the CRT is dying, but in the middle of it, it's perfect. So if I ever had the space for it, I would totally love to have one of those, and even if I just taped it off with cardboard or something like that. But I'd love to have one of those dedicated to playing Game Boy on a full tube. But sorry, I don't have any better answers for you. Porkchop Express 85 was wondering if I or anyone else could explain in detail what the difference is between the Game Boy Color backlight options that are available. I have no clue, but it can't be a coincidence that Ben Ven, Mick Will, and Midwest Gaming all came up with this within a month of each other. Somebody had to have found a compatible LCD, or one was released, and the smart minds that are always looking out for these things all found them at the same time. I don't know. I have no idea, but I wish I could figure out the full story, and I wish I could understand the differences and where they came from, because while I'm super happy that all this stuff exists all of a sudden, for years it was deemed impossible. So maybe I'll just reach out to I know Ben and I know McWill, so maybe I'll just reach out to them and try to get the full story behind the scenes. But as of now, I got nothing. Sorry. Samson Wick wanted to follow up with this question last week about good newer TVs I recommend. And I didn't tell the exact Samsung I was talking about. It was just a little vague. But the Samsung QLED, the QN55Q6F, was what was told to me. It was a really great TV, and people were very happy with it. So, as always, you never know. There could be all of Samsung's QLEDs could be just as good, or it could just be this model number. I don't really know. And I didn't rattle off model numbers for the TCL and LG because those are all detailed in that video I did. So I could try to help with model numbers and stuff, but things change so often. You really gotta get yourself a time sleuth, go to the store, double check the lag, and then hope that it's a good gaming TV. Hopefully gaming TVs will become a thing that's under $4,000, where people could buy those knowing that they're already cleared for FreeSync and stuff like that. But I think we're a few years away from that. Well, that's it for this week. Anybody that could make the expo this weekend, I'm really excited to meet anybody who could show up and come by and say hi. And for anybody else who might be new to these Q&As, ask any question you'd like. Just please post in the newest video wherever you found this Q&A. So Patreon, Subscribestar, YouTube, whatever, wherever it is that you support, thank you very much. But that's the place to put the questions. These are really focused on subscriber only. And while I do make them public in about a month just as a courtesy, this really is just a giant thank you to all of you. So thank you all very much. And if I don't see you at the expo, I'll see you next week.